Okay, welcome everybody. Glad to see you all out tonight. Hopefully the weather holds off a little bit. It was starting to rain just a tiny bit on the way here, but I'm hoping that we get home before any of the major stuff starts. A couple announcements before we get to our speaker tonight. We have a beginning birding walk on December 6th, 9 a.m. at the Fish Hatchery. Those continue to be fun and well attended, so come out and join us if you like. On Saturday, December 14th, from 3 to 6 p.m., we have our open country birding meeting at the Angling Road Park and Ride to do a caravan from there. That's a fun outing. It can be cold, so dress appropriately, but it's a lot of fun. We have the Christmas bird count coming up the Saturday after Christmas, December 27th, and we invite you to join us. Russ Skipper, where are you, Russ? In the back is our organizer once again. You can either join us to go out into the field on Christmas bird count, or you can, if you're in the area of our Christmas bird count, you can count from home. So you can see Russ about that if you want to know more. Regardless of whether you go out with us or count at home, or even if you aren't in the area, our actual Christmas bird count area, we invite you to the potluck at noon that day, which is here. Everyone contributes something to it. It's a really fun way to hear about what birds were seen in the morning, and then some of us after lunch head back out for more birding. But you don't have to participate in the Christmas bird count. If you just want to come and bring something and enjoy the stories from the morning, we welcome you to that. It's a fun gathering. Let's see, we have Wingspan. We're going to try something new this year. We're going to try a game afternoon, I guess, as it turns out, on Saturday, January 10th from 2 to 4:30 p.m. Those of you who don't like to be out birding in the middle of winter, this is a warm indoor activity at Urbelli's on Stadium Drive. We have 9 people signed up already, and so we're going to try to group people according to their experience with the game. And there are videos online that you can watch if you don't know what Wingspan is. I have never played, but I understand that it's a lot of fun, especially for the bird nerds. So you all will be in very good company if you come to that. There is a sign up, and there's a link in the newsletter, and so go ahead and sign up for that so that we know how many people to expect. And we're going to buy a few appetizers to start, and then people can buy their own drinks and buy their own other food if they like. Let's see, Gail, I think I have you next for volunteers. Do you want me to make the announcement? Yeah. Okay. So we have the Kalamazoo Nature Center is organizing on Saturday, January 3rd, a sort of an informal birds and coffee gathering. So they're going to have a coffee food truck at the Nature Center, and they're going to have some tabling groups. I think Norman Camera will be there with binoculars and cameras, and we're hoping that we are there, but we need volunteers to table that day. So we're waiting to hear more about that, whether it'll be inside or outside, depending on the weather. But if you're interested in knowing more about it, you don't even necessarily have to make a 100% commitment, but if it's something you'd want to know more about when we have more information, you can sign up. And then if you can't make it on Saturday, January 3rd from 9:30 to 12:30, there is a spot at the bottom where you can indicate that you would be interested in helping another time if January 3rd doesn't work for you. So we'll pass that around, and Gail will get this at the end. Gail, raise your hand. Just make sure that Gail gets that when it goes all the way around. And then Pam, do you want to make an announcement?
Hi everybody, usually I'm not up here talking. I'm Pam Jackson, I'm on the board, and we're starting another fun indoor activity for those of you that are going to be bored in January, and that is a Feathered Friends Book Club. It's been bantered around a little bit, and we decided to go ahead and see if we could land this event. It'll be sometime in January, and our first book is The Birds That Audubon Missed by Ken Kaufman. So if you're interested, if you've already read it, that's okay. If you're interested in participating, just send me a contact message through our Contact Us page on the website, and I'll contact you about what we're going to do time-wise and hope we can get more people involved. Thank you.
Okay, just one more quick announcement. We are still looking for someone to help us to coordinate our tabling volunteers. I'd like to take that off Gail's already very full plate. So if anyone is interested in hearing more about that, I'd be happy to talk to you about it. I've done it before. Gail has done it for a while. But we really need someone who can be sort of a point person, that when we have a tabling opportunity like we have coming up in January, to just keep track of the email list, send out an appeal for volunteers, and just help coordinate that. So if you can talk to me, if you're interested, it would be very helpful to us to have someone step up and do that. So, all right, I think I'm going to turn it over to Gail to introduce our speaker tonight.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us, everyone, and I'm just really thrilled about this talk tonight, How to Attract Michigan Bluebirds, and delighted to have Penny Briscoe with us. Penny is a former board member and president of this esteemed organization, so it's fun to have her back. She has a passion for birds that are blue and purple, so we know her from, her work with the Purple Martins, and she's been quite a resource and knowledgeable mentor for many people who were interested in attracting Purple Martins to their yard. So now she's expanded into another blue category of bluebirds, and so she's active with the Michigan Bluebird Association. Penny is a retired educator, so she taught English and business in the Lawton and Gull Lake school districts for quite a while. And when she retired, she was still looking for more educational opportunities, so she has become a Michigan Master Naturalist. So she's learned a lot through trial and error in various different organizations. And so lately she's stepped up in this Bluebird category. Earlier this year, Audubon Society of Kalamazoo was awarded from the Michigan Songbird Coalition 8 sets of Bluebird boxes. And I'm not sure how we were so honored with that, but all of our good work, and I think it stems back to a lot of the work we did many years ago, trying to prohibit hunting of mourning doves. So I guess we're still in good standing with the Michigan Songbird Coalition. And so all of this whole system arrived at my garage, and it took up quite a bit of the garage, and I knew exactly who I needed to call. And I called Penny, and I'm like, Penny, I know you will know where to get these Bluebird boxes up and in a place that they can be monitored and be in the best hands possible. And so thanks to Penny, who came and rescued me from this avalanche of Bluebird boxes, and to her husband Rick for assembling them all, and she's going to tell us more about that. So anyway, I really welcome Penny to be here with us tonight. Looking forward to the program. So take it away.
Well, since you brought up the free Bluebird boxes, I'll show you what they look like. So this is one of them.
Okay, there we go. Okay, so anyways, here's the house if you want to get a good look at it. It's a pretty typical style of a bluebird house. It does have this guard on the front, and I was reading a little bit about that today. Apparently this block that's put on the front of the bluebird entry hole, or any bird hole for that matter, on the houses, it actually helps deter raccoons, squirrels, owls, anybody who wants to get in there. It's a little bit more of a reach. And the roof goes over over the entry hole also, and apparently that's another way that it makes it more difficult for animals to get in there. So it was a really nice house, and it came with, each one came with one of these, and I have these on my Purple Martin poles, but I'm telling you, this is like really heavy. It's a really expensive raccoon guard or squirrel guard, and it came with a really nice pole, and you know, it was just a great setup. So what happened was because I am involved in the Bluebird Society, I contacted the Kalamazoo County Coordinator. Her name is Lisa Reed, and Lisa had all kinds of ideas, so we drove around and we found a place we thought we should put them, and then we contacted Ashtamo Township, and they were real excited about getting some free Bluebird boxes. They're apparently trying really hard in Ashtamo Township to get more nature in their parks and so on. So a bunch of us got together and we put 5 of these houses there at Drake Homestead. And if you go there, you can see that we've placed them. They're actually more than there should be for the amount of area, but it's not a bad idea to put more houses up because we might get tree swallows there. These houses are used by tree swallows. The hope is we don't get any house sparrows, but Lisa, the Kalamazoo County Coordinator, is going to be monitoring those. One of the houses I took to a Purple Martin party that we have every year, and it was raffled off, and a gal from Three Rivers won, and that house is now in her private meadow on M66. So we're keeping track of that one. Another one was placed at a park in Hayes Park in Kalamazoo. The Rotarians in Kalamazoo were making a native garden. And I thought, wow, this is a perfect place for another one of these houses. So they've got a house there, and they were excited about having it. And then the last one is scheduled to go in a second native garden that Rotary is going to be doing in the spring. So that's the story on the free houses that Gail was so kind to send my way. And Rick put them all together, so, you know, he's getting really good at birdhouses. Okay. Well, I'm here. I wanted to show you one more house, and then I have a picture in one of my slides. This is a slotted bluebird house. This is my favorite. It's like everything else. Not everybody likes them as well as I do, but for me, when I have the slotted bluebird house like this, I do not get house sparrows. I do get wrens sometimes, and I will get a tree swallow once in a while, but it tends to keep the house sparrows out. So it's just another of the many styles that you're going to see. I've got a slide with some others. So, okay, now I'm ready. Thanks. Yeah, thank you. On now? Okay. So it's going to take me just a second here to pull up this movie. This is a Michigan Bluebird Society movie. They had it made, and there was just so much really cool photography in it that I wanted to show 3 clips. The first clip from the movie is about 8 minutes long, and it talks about not just our eastern bluebirds, but it also talks about the mountain bluebird and the western bluebird and a couple other things. But on top of that, there's some really nice photography. So give me just a sec here.
A bubbling, cheerful song that warms the heart. A dedication to family that transcends time. Bluebirds have been loved and cherished by people in North America for many centuries. From early Native American campsites and the first farmsteads of the settlers to today's suburban neighborhoods, bluebirds have graced our lives in numerous indescribable ways. This video is a collaboration between Charles St. Charles and the Michigan Bluebird Society. In it, we'll show you how this beloved bird lives its life and how people like you can help these beautiful birds survive and thrive. Why are so many people drawn to bluebirds? Maybe it's because people love their brilliant splash of color and their friendly demeanor. Or maybe it's because of the way bluebirds accept people and are willing to let their lives play out in the midst of our lives. For many bluebirds, life begins in a nest box. These boxes are provided by people who simply want to help birds. The culmination of life inside the nest box is fledging, the day that baby birds fly for the first time, leaving the comfort and security of their nest cavity forever. This is an exciting moment, not just for the birds, but also for the people aiding birds. In North America, there are 3 species of bluebirds. Eastern bluebirds live roughly in the eastern half of North America. Mountain bluebirds live in the mountainous area of the West, all the way from Alaska down to central Mexico. Western bluebirds are also found in the West along woodland openings. Their territory overlaps with mountain bluebirds, but doesn't extend far to the north and south. There are overlapping territories for all 3 species. It's easier to use the males to determine which type of bluebirds you see. Mountain bluebirds are simple to identify. They are colored sky blue. Western bluebirds and eastern bluebirds look similar, but western bluebirds have blue all the way around their head, throat, and upper back. Eastern bluebirds have rusty orange color on their throat. This video focuses on eastern bluebirds, but there are commonalities between all 3 species. If you live in the United States or southern Canada, you invariably have some bluebirds a short drive away. All 3 species of bluebirds are cavity nesters, which means that their nests are built in enclosed areas, like hollows in a tree. Over 85 species of birds in North America are known to nest in cavities. These cavity nesting birds cover a wide range of birds, everything from wrens, nuthatches, chickadees, swallows, and woodpeckers, all the way to owls and even some ducks. Woodpeckers are perfectly capable of chiseling their own cavities. But birds that can't make their own cavities, including bluebirds, search for holes left by woodpeckers, openings formed by fallen branches or dying trees, and nest boxes made and provided by humans. The competition for these cavities can be intense, sometimes even violent. Historically, 2 trends negatively impacted bluebird populations. One was the loss of available natural nesting cavities as land was cleared for cities and farming. Then, in the latter half of the 19th century, house sparrows and European starlings were released in New York City. Their populations exploded to 150 million and 200 million birds respectively. These non-native birds drove bluebirds out of cavity nesting sites, and the population of bluebirds plummeted by more than 50%. Even as bluebird populations were declining in the first half of the 1900s, the seeds of bluebird recovery were being sown. Along the banks of the Mississippi River, in a small town of Quincy, Illinois, lived T.E. Musselman, a titan in bluebird conservation. Musselman was a professor at Gem City Business College and an avid naturalist and birder. He noticed early on that bluebird numbers were quickly declining. It correctly identified the loss of natural cavities for nesting and the introduction of non-native cavity nesting species as two major causes of the decline. Instead of just idly sitting by and watching bluebirds disappear, he actively came up with ways of helping bluebirds recover. After observing a pair of bluebirds making their nest in a downy woodpecker cavity in a stump, Musselman started working on modeling nest boxes based on what he had seen. He spent 8 years testing almost 100 designs, each with different sizes, shapes, and openings. He researched better nest boxes. He created the first trails of nest boxes, and, most importantly, he educated people about what was happening with bluebirds. Musselman was highly sought after as a speaker within the natural world, and he wrote newspaper and magazine articles. Soon, he had a nationwide following. Later, Lawrence Zeleny brought the plight of bluebirds to mainstream attention. He founded the North American Bluebird Society in 1978. This organization advocated for bluebirds and inspired thousands of people to create bluebird nest box trails across North America. Farmers had been putting up nest boxes along their fields even before the bluebird crisis, because they knew having insect-eating birds nearby meant fewer insects eating their crops. But the openings in those nest boxes were often too large, permitting starlings to easily take over bluebird nest boxes and push bluebirds out. By restricting the size of the openings of the nest boxes, people like Musselman found they could keep the starlings out of the boxes. Modern bluebird nest boxes have small openings that starlings cannot enter. There are also some designs that have features that can help discourage house sparrows. In some areas of the country, the bluebird population was estimated to have dropped by 90% from its peak. But because of everyday people who took the time to build these modern nest boxes, bluebird populations have been on the increase for decades now. Groups like the North American
First one. Second one's shorter. It'll take me just a second to find it.
And that's all there is to it.
Now you know how to build a nest box and how to set it up. But where do you set it up? Bluebirds are mainly insect eaters, and they like to hunt from low perches where they can see their prey. Therefore, fields and openings with fairly short grass are good places to set up nest boxes. Each nesting pair of bluebirds requires 1 to 1.5 acres of open habitat to find enough insect food to feed their young and themselves. You don't have to own the entire field. What is important is that bluebirds have access to the field. Putting up more boxes will increase your chances of getting bluebirds and other cavity nesters. However, try to keep bluebird nest boxes at least 100 yards apart to avoid territorial aggression. Also, try to keep nest boxes away from buildings. House sparrows are drawn to human structures, so keeping nest boxes away from these structures may help you avoid having house sparrows take over a box. Put up your box when bluebirds arrive in your area. Bluebirds do over winter in some areas. In those locations, put up your box when the birds are no longer flocking together. There are entire dramas that will play out around these boxes. This young male is the first to return for the season, and he sings his heart out trying to get the attention of a female.
Is, I think, really quite interesting. It's something I didn't know before. Toward the end of the clip, it shows how the female actually makes the nest inside. And one of the things I didn't know is at the very end, after she brings all the grass in, and the male helps a little bit, but it's mostly the female. But what she does is she gets down in the grass and she twirls around and around and around, and that's why the nest is round like it is. And I never knew that before. So this is kind of cool. It's a sped up clip. So if you watch closely, you'll see her doing that.
He seems immensely curious about what is going on inside of the box. What is going on in there? Let's take a look at a time-lapse video from inside the box to see how the nest is built. If you pay close attention at the end, you will see her spinning around in the grass using her body to form a cup to hold the eggs. Once she lays that first egg, she will return each consecutive morning to lay another egg until there are...
Okay, and that's the end of the clip. So does anybody have any questions on this? I just thought the photography was really nice, and there was a lot of good information in there, especially about the other two bluebird types. So now I'm going to switch to a PowerPoint. It'll be a little slower, and I'll be talking part of it. Okay, again, this is based on a Michigan Bluebird Society PowerPoint that they give all of their county coordinators. So I just made a few changes to it and maybe cut it in half. It was pretty long. So as we go through it, I'll give a little commentary probably. Some of this is repetitious from the little clip that I showed, but one thing on here that I don't remember was mentioned in the clip, bluebirds are thrushes, and that means they like to be on the ground. So a lot of people don't realize that robins are thrushes and so are bluebirds. So in that regard, they're related, and they have a lot of the same tendencies when it comes to looking for food and so on. You see them on the ground. I see mine on the ground a lot. If you have bluebirds at your property, you probably do too. This is the female, lighter in color. And here are just a few facts about bluebirds. So I think one thing that's kind of interesting to note is that they can have 2 to 3 clutches a year, and lots of times they'll use the same house. It's a really good idea to take out the nest that was in there for the first clutch It's not absolutely necessary, but a lot of times nests they're infested with insects, mites, blowflies, things like that. And so if you take that nest out, if the bluebirds were successful, they will build their nest again in just a couple days, and they'll start all over again. So that's one of the ways that bluebirds are different from the purple martins that I usually do work with. Purple martins have just one clutch per year, where bluebirds usually have 2, but sometimes 3. And by the way, the eggs aren't always blue. Every once in a while, you'll end up with white bluebird eggs. Oh, I've got a freeze up. Okay, this is the range. You can see in our area down in the south, we have bluebirds all year round. So I don't know if you guys can hear me or not. From here, it doesn't sound like the mic is on. Can you guys hear? Okay. So, so you're going to see bluebirds all year round here. A lot of people are surprised by that. A couple of weeks ago, we have a place out in Mendon, and a couple of weeks ago, we had a whole flock come in, and it's really kind of fun to see 10 or 12 bluebirds at a time. I have a son who lives in North Carolina, and he likes to send me pictures. He's just recently become a birder. He's gone crazy over these bluebirds. He'll get 30 or 40 bluebirds at a time at his feeding trays, and he's telling me he's spending in the winter $300 a month on food for the bluebirds. And of course, they like mealworms mostly, but there are some other things that you can feed them as well, apparently. So we already talked about the mountain bluebird. It's found in the West and Canadian mountain areas. I have actually not seen one that I can remember, but maybe if I go out there birding sometime, I will. The mountain bluebird's a little bit bigger, by the way, than our eastern bluebird. This is the western bluebird. Looks a lot like ours, except it has kind of a blue helmet on its whole head. The things bluebirds need, they need nesting sites, first of all, so that pretty much means you need to put a bluebird house in your yard. You may see one nest in a natural cavity, but that's kind of rare nowadays. They need food, so most people don't realize that you're not going to get bluebirds in your yard if you don't have an environment in your yard that has food, which probably means some kind of native plants and native trees. The oak tree happens to produce the biggest number of different kinds of caterpillars and moths and than any other tree, but especially compared to a non-native tree. They also need water, and they do like bird baths. They like moving water, so if you can put a little fountain in your bird bath, that would be good. And they need shelter. So the nest boxes are the easiest way to attract bluebirds. And here's a variety of boxes. So you can see that there are a variety of people are testing like crazy. I have a friend over in Jackson. She's also a purple martin landlord, but she owns a campground, and she's doing all kinds of experiments with bluebird boxes also. She's even using a bluebird box that has 3 holes. She also has a couple that have 2 holes, and the whole idea is if a sparrow gets in that house, the bluebird has a way to escape. So also another thing that's happening is They're starting to think that the smaller Bluebird boxes that everybody's been using are not ideal. So you might want to consider a little bigger Bluebird box. And there's all kinds of information online about that. And again, everybody who does anything with Bluebirds, everybody kind of has their own personal Bluebird box that they like. The important thing is that you can get into the Bluebird box so that you can clean it out and you can do nest checks and keep track of the babies and so on. In the winter time, it's a good idea to plug up any cracks and holes that might be in the box, not the entry hole, but any cracks and spots where air and stuff might get in. You can just do it with a little bit of cotton or something like that. That way the bluebirds and other birds have a nice place to sort of hide and stay warm in the winter time. Another thing that's recommended is if you put a little sawdust in the bottom of the bluebird house, it makes it seem more like a natural cavity, and there are people who say that really works well. This is called a Peterson nest box, and most people really like it, but Rick and I went up to Caledonia a couple weeks ago and visited a guy who has, I thought he said 80 bluebird boxes that he monitors, but he doesn't like the Peterson nest box. So that kind of surprised me. So, well, why don't you like the Peterson nest box? Well, he thinks it's too small. And so this is like a really popular nest box, and a lot of people love it. But if you look at it, I mean, it is kind of small, but the nest is built sort of up, not at the very bottom. So if water gets in there, they drain very well. So that's a really good thing about those. This is a Gilbertson PVC box, and according to this slide that I didn't make, somebody else made it, they really like it. They think this is like the best one that you can have. So it's made out of a birch log, and it's not very big. So I don't know if people will continue to use that now that they know they prefer bigger boxes. This is a gillwood. Notice the opening there, and again, there's a little metal bar across it, and that's so bigger birds can't get in. And this is nothing more than a square box that opens on one side, and it's probably the simplest one. It's very easy to make, and there are directions all over online if you want to make a bluebird box like this. Up in the right-hand corner, you can see, oh, there it is right there. Okay, the slotted box, and that's the one I like. And I got started on these because I was doing some investigating online, and I ran across a website called Bluebirds Across Nebraska. There are a whole bunch of farmers out there that are making these bluebird boxes. So I ordered one and had good luck with it and really liked it. So then I ordered a couple more. I don't know, I probably ordered 10. The last time the guy sent them, he gave me a free one. He said, "You've ordered so many of these, here, one of these is free." So that was kind of nice. But they still are doing that out there, and they're pretty inexpensive. They aren't a real finished, pretty bluebird box, but the bluebirds seem to really like them. And those are the ones that Rick has been making for me now because we have the plans. So. This just talks about how important habitat is and how they really like wide open spaces. I do have some in areas that have a little taller grass, and my bluebirds seem fine with that. But anytime you put them in tall grass, there's more of a chance of predators. And if you put them anywhere near trees, you're going to get house wrens. And house wrens are native birds, so it's not legal to remove house wren nests. But what the house wren will do is it'll go around to 2 or 3 or 4 boxes, put a bunch of sticks in each of them, but then it only uses one box for its chicks. This is just showing some good locations: golf courses, metro parks, pastures, orchards, farm fields, open subdivisions, people's yards as long as they're not right up against a tree. It should be mounted on a 5-foot pole, no higher than what you can see in when you go to check your Bluebird box. And again, here, these are right along the woods, and you know, there are a lot of people who put them that way, and they often are successful, but a lot of times you'll get wrens, or maybe even you'll have a predator problem. But notice that those have some really good pole guards on them. And spacing is quite important. Apparently, bluebirds need about a 300-foot area. They're very territorial. So if you have too many bluebird boxes in a smaller area, you're only going to get one pair for the most part. There have been stories of people getting more bluebirds closer together. Perhaps maybe there's becoming a shortage of housing, who knows? But, you know, everything I'm telling you is sort of the standard. So these are the optimal conditions. So don't mount bluebird boxes on trees, on the sides of buildings, don't mount them on fences, and don't mount them close to heavy traffic areas, because those are all places where bluebirds are in peril by either raccoons or squirrels or snakes even, or cars. Bluebirds can start defending territories as early as February. So if you start looking around in February and you have bluebird boxes, you'll see that there are bluebirds starting to poke around, and they will actually accept a house if the female likes it, and they'll actually start building a nest as early as March. This is just a picture of a nest with, this one happens to have 6 eggs in it. That's a lot. Normally it's 4, maybe 5. 3 is kind of common, but generally, you know, I've never had a nest with 6 in it. So the female incubates the eggs for 12 to 14 days. So it's about 2 weeks before the eggs hatch. And you should keep looking in there to make sure everything is going okay, because you might find, for example, that something has happened to the female. Maybe the eggs have been pipped, which means a house sparrow's gotten in there and poked holes in them. There are all kinds of things. Maybe you'll see that there's an infestation of insects, and you can do a nest change. Even if there are eggs in there, you just want to be really careful not to shake the eggs or anything. And you just put it all back in, and the female will still take care of her eggs. This is just a picture of day 1. There's a hatching. Day 6. Day 15. I'm always surprised because with bluebirds and so many of the songbirds, they're ready to fledge in just over 2 weeks. And of course, I'm really used to working with purple martins. They don't fledge for over 30 days, usually 35 days. So it just seems like such a miracle to me that this egg can turn into a full-grown chick ready to fly in just over 2 weeks. They like a tidy nest, so you might see the female and the male carrying out you know, we call them what, a poop sack, but it's their feces that they're carrying out, and they do that because they don't want to have the nest get dirty, because then, of course, it won't be good for the babies. This is just post-fledging. They'll feed their babies for a long time, even after they have a second brood. They'll still, the first brood will still hang around and sometimes get fed. You should clean out the box. Again, it's not absolutely necessary, but it is what most bluebird landlords do. If you take the old nesting material out, maybe even sanitize it. Some people use a 10% bleach and water mix and just kind of wipe it out, make sure there's no infestation in there. and then the bluebirds will come back, and it'll usually be the very same pair of bluebirds. And by the way, from year to year, they will select the same box if it's available and they still like it. Nest box monitoring is important. A lot of people do this, and now in Michigan, a lot of people who have these bluebird trails are reporting their data. Michigan Bluebird Society likes the data to be reported to them, and they're doing a pretty good job keeping track of statistics, and it helps know how the bluebirds are doing. And by the way, bluebirds are doing very well. The numbers are up on bluebirds, and that's almost entirely because people have been putting up nest boxes and taking care of them. So why monitor? You know what's in the box. You look for predator or insect problems, prevent house sparrows from taking over the box, maybe save an orphan youngster, and then you can get feedback on your house and your location. If you have a house up for 3 years and you never get bluebirds, might be time to move it. Touching young birds is okay. Probably most of you know that in here. That's sort of an old wives' tale that, you know, if you touch a baby, then the parents will abandon the nest, but that's not true. You shouldn't do that unless you have a purpose, and the purpose is, of course, to make sure that the chicks are healthy and that they will be able to fledge correctly. So this is just a picture of a guy doing some data collection. You need to solve problems that really involve predators, insects, and competitors. Cats are a really big deal for bluebirds because their houses are typically only about 5 feet in the air. So it would be a good idea if you have a cat and you keep it outdoors, maybe put it indoors at least through the bluebird season. Cats aren't such a big problem for purple martins because their nest boxes are really high up in the air and they don't go to the ground like bluebirds do. But remember, bluebirds are thrushes, so they do spend a fair amount of time on the ground. These are a couple of predator guards. The one at the left is pretty typical. You see these on a lot of bluebird houses. The one on the right is my picture. We were down in Kansas a few years ago, and I saw a bluebird trail, and it had these things hooked underneath all of the houses that were on this trail. And all it is a coat hanger that's been cut up in chunks, and then they're bent, and then you just take a twist tie, and it creates kind of a pokey, not very pleasant thing for a raccoon or a squirrel to run into. And we've had good luck with that, and it's inexpensive. So here's the raccoon baffle, like the one down there. Some people have snake problems, especially in the south. On the right is a net, and that's what most people use on purple martin houses. Most of the martin landlords I know are very careful to cut the snake out and not kill the snake. Most people who like birds also like snakes, but you don't want a snake getting in your house. Squirrels and chipmunks can be a problem. Insects, lots of people report a wasp problem in the nest, and that's another reason why you want to monitor. If you see a wasp problem, you're going to want to get the wasps out of there, not by spraying insect spray in there. So you've got to be pretty careful to do it, but you got to get the wasps out of there. And this suggests using ivory soap on the roof. Apparently that deters insects. Blowflies are not a huge problem in Michigan. I run into it a little bit with the purple martins, but I've never really had blowflies in my bluebird nest boxes. This is the tree swallow, one of my favorite birds. A lot of people say they don't like them, but I think they're beautiful. And so what you can do is set up 2 boxes side by side, 15 or 20 feet apart. And I was instructed to face the openings toward each other. And that way the bluebird can see the tree swallow and the tree swallow can see the bluebird, and then everybody's happy. And we do have a setup at our house on Barton Lake where I'd say they're about 15 feet apart. And we do get in both houses tree swallows in one and lots of times bluebirds in the other. So this is just talking about spacing two houses together. This is the house wren. It's a native bird. I like the house wren, but it's kind of a naughty little bird, and it will go in and destroy your chicks. I've had my little 1 to 3 day old bluebird chicks carried away, and I know it wasn't house sparrows that did it. So you really got to look out for these guys. Try not to put your nest boxes too near trees or your house, and keep a close eye out. This is what a pipped egg looks like, and that is normally done by house sparrows, and they can go in and destroy every egg in the nest in no time flat while the bluebird is gone, or they even will kill the female bluebird and get rid of the eggs, and they'll carry this stuff right out of the nest. Not the adult bluebird, I've never seen that, but eggs and little chicks, they'll carry them away. How to combat sparrows: remove their nest continually. A lot of people trap. I trap sparrows. A lot of people think that's a terrible thing to do, but it's the only way. When you have purple martins and bluebirds, you can do it in a way that is quick and painless. But just catching them and dumping them in somebody else's territory, that's like, I've heard it said, it's like dumping your garbage in someone else's yard. House sparrows are a problem for all nest cavity birds. So this is a sparrow shield that some people like. I've never used it, but I've talked to people who say, oh yeah, that really works great. My friend in Jackson uses it. This is another one. After the eggs have been laid, there are these ribbons that are kind of sparkly, and they apparently help keep the sparrows away. Then this is talking about feeding bluebirds and what they like. The best thing really is mealworms, dry or live. The problem with putting mealworms out is it attracts other birds. So if you can get a special bluebird feeder, sometimes you're lucky. I feed my purple martins live mealworms and crickets in the spring and the trays are up really high because that's what you have to do with purple martins. And I always get bluebird visitors. They're like, okay, she's feeding the martins, here we come. And they will hang around up in that tray for, a half hour at a time. They do like suet. Apparently they will eat fruit as well. I've never tried the cornmeal muffins or anything like that. Okay, and this is just a picture of somebody having a lot of bluebirds come to their feeder. Mealworm feeding tips. Again, I guess my tip would be to try to find a feeder that's special just for bluebirds. And of course, feed them in the same place. And then this says at the same time every day. Morning is a really good time to feed them. They do like water, and notice this has running water. They like that. But if you're going to use water, keep it clean, sanitize it regularly, and don't make it too deep. So it really shouldn't be any more than an inch deep. Use native plants whenever you can. If you want birds in your yard, you have got to create a reason for the birds to come. So the best way is native plants, and there are bazillions of native plants you can use. That's something I've really gotten into the last many years, and it's made a huge difference. This is a great book, Nature's Best Hope. It's by Doug Ptolemy. How many of you guys have that? Anybody? Yeah. He's written several. I've got pretty much all of his books, and he's got a really good following, and he's a specialist in insects, so that's kind of his thing, is like how to get insects in your yard. Bluebirds are good for your garden, and 68% of bluebird diet is insects, and this is just a list of all the different insects they'll eat. They are especially in need of insects during nesting when they're feeding chicks, because that's what they feed chicks. And that's not just with bluebirds, it's with just about all songbirds. They want caterpillars and spiders and moths and ants and all those kinds of things. That's what their chicks eat. Berry-producing plants are great, especially in the winter. Native berry-producing plants. Sumac is an important winter food. I went to a workshop a couple of years ago, and I guess sumac is also really important for bees in the spring. It's one of the first flowering native plants. This is just a list of some berries liked by bluebirds, and so I'm always trying to create, plants, put plants in there that have berries. We have a place out in Mendon that's 5 acres, and we've been working on that for 10 years, trying to get rid of the non-native stuff and putting the native stuff in, and we like berries. How you can help bluebirds: put up nest boxes, monitor them in your yard and neighborhood, garden for bluebirds with native plants, join the Michigan Bluebird Society, and tell others about bluebirds. It's not that hard. Give it a try. That's the end.
So how many of you have bluebird boxes? What?
Standing behind the Okay. Okay. So how many of you have bluebird boxes in your yards? Just about everybody. How many of you have been successful with bluebirds? That's pretty good. I think it's becoming more well known what to do and how to have bluebirds successfully. I tell everybody that I know and everybody Rick knows, it's like, oh, there she is, the bird lady. And I've got to tell you, it hasn't been that many years, only really, I've had purple martins since 1985, and that's what got me started. And now I have 2 colonies, one in Mendon with 42 nest boxes, and one on Barton Lake with 30 nest boxes. But it was the purple martins that actually led me to this Audubon Club. Somewhere in 2007 or something, somebody asked me to do a talk on purple martins, but since then I'm doing talks all over the place, and that's how I got involved in the Bluebird Society. So yeah, I'm kind of a convert. I've been taking a lot of bird trips, and I quit scuba diving, and now I'm on trails doing birds. So yeah, any questions? Yes.
Oh, yeah, it's okay if you want to take the question, but. Hello, what about the winter bluebird box that supposedly has the hole at the bottom? Is that something to try or just a myth?
I'm not familiar with a bluebird box that has a hole in the bottom. Help the heat rise up.
Yeah, where did you get this? Okay, we love the internet. It might be kind of cold though. I mean, does it work? Do you get bluebirds in that box? Okay, you get chickadees in it. Okay, something else to look into. Okay, mine just like my bluebird boxes, and I actually get downy woodpeckers sometimes in those boxes. Every now and then you'll find a feather in there in the spring. But no, that's interesting to know. Other questions? Okay. Yep. Keep your wren houses away from trees, first of all. Yeah, the question is how to get wrens to stay away from your bluebird boxes. So I would say the most important thing is just to keep your bluebird boxes away from trees. But the problem with wrens is if you put up 5 houses, they might put sticks in 3 or 4 of those, maybe even all 5, but then they only use 1. So you really have to be aware, and then you've got to take the sticks out, which I don't know what the law is about taking the sticks out of their false nests, but I do unless I see, if I can tell that it's a real nest, it's the nest, I leave it alone because it's the law, first of all, but also I do like wrens. It's my mistake. I've put a house too close to a tree. What? Well, bluebirds are looking. Okay, what factors determine where bluebirds go in the winter? I think that's the question. Okay, bluebirds need food in the winter, so they're going to go where there's food. They need shelter in the winter, so they're going to go where there's shelter. If you have bluebird boxes up in the winter, that could be the shelter for them. And my son in North Carolina, believe it or not, this huge flock of bluebirds, they're in the trees right behind his house, and he actually feeds them in the trees, and it's an amazing thing to see. So it's the same thing in the summer and the winter. You've got to give these bluebirds a reason to be in your yard. Yeah. I don't know if trees have a measuring tape or not, but I think it would probably depend on whether they were successful before. You know, if these bluebirds were in your yard before and you put up a new house, okay, they might be interested in it. I don't know. I've never read a measurement or anything, but I mean, I don't know. I'd say, 10 yards, 30 feet, something like that. I admit that I've put a bluebird house very close to our garage on Barton Lake, and we get bluebirds every year, and they're successful. But that might just be our particular environment, and I use those slotted boxes, so we don't have problems with it, I don't have an answer. Oh, okay. So the slotted box is made so that the board in the front is just a little shorter than all the other boards. And I think it's about 1.5 inches. So the opening is 1.5 inches tall, and then it's as wide as the front of the box. The hole, by the way, for bluebirds is typically a 1.5 inch hole. So, that's pretty important to stick to that. If you have anything smaller, the bluebirds probably won't be able to get in. Chickadees like 1.25 inches, I think. I don't know that there's an answer. You don't want the slot to be too big, or a starling could get in there. Yeah. Yeah, if somebody wants to build a couple of those, we've got plans for those. So just come up after we're done and let us know, and we'll send you the plans. Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Penny. That was an interesting talk, and hopefully it motivates some of us to get some bluebird box plans and get that going. Remember that we don't have a meeting in December, and our next talk will be January 26th, a program on raptor migration monitoring here beginning at 7 o'clock. So that's our next meeting. Thank you again, Penny, and thanks everyone for coming tonight. And we look forward to seeing you in the new year, if not before, at one of our gatherings. Good night.